Warren Buffett tells us amazing stories from the world of investing and business. Please subscribe to this channel and put likes. Let's listen and draw conclusions from it. Despite his age, even now we can learn a lot from him. But you may not agree with some of his opinions.
But Mrs. B, with her $2,500, one further fact about her, she could not read or write. And she went into a furniture business, and she didn't bring anything in unique in furniture, but she brought a determination to succeed. She knew she could outwork anyone else. She knew she cared about her customers. She worked at very low gross margins, but she built this incredible business. And I saw one other woman who did a similar thing with $2,500. I paid her hundreds of millions of dollars for her business. So I decided to go to the source and get these people before, I don't want you guys coming around to me asking me hundreds of millions of dollars. I'd like to join in with you much earlier. So I've followed this group, and today I'd like to tell you about one other small business person. This person, I went to buy his business from him, and he turned me down, which was very wise. But this was a fellow who was born about 8 years before I was. He was born in 1922. He was we'll call him Jack, lived in the Midwest. He was a pretty good athlete, didn't like school much. And I'm going to tell you one thing early in the story. Maybe you can figure out who the guy was. The company he built hires more college graduates each year than any other company in the United States. And this fellow, who was destined for this but did not know it, Jack, went to college for a year and then dropped out. He really wasn't that interested in school. And the year he dropped out was 1941. And when the United States became under attack, he went down to the Army Air Force recruiting station, volunteered, and they turned him down because he had hay fever. So he went over to the Navy and again volunteered, and they took him. They put him on an aircraft carrier. He flew small fighter planes during World War II, got 2 distinguished flying crosses from the Navy, and then he came back to the Midwest. So now we've got a young guy. Probably by this time he would be 23 or 24 years old. And the interesting thing is, he got back to the Midwest, and he actually kind of went from one job to another for a short period of, or not such a short period of time. And he finally became a used car salesman at a Cadillac dealership in St. Louis, Missouri. And at age 35, having moved up in the organization, the sales organization, he said to his boss, could I go into car leasing business with you? The boss said, well, if you'll cut your salary in half and you'll come up with, I think it was $25,000, which he borrowed, we can become partners in a car leasing company. So my friend Jack started at age 35 in the car leasing business. And he had 7 cars. It was pretty slow. In fact, one of the things he did was whenever the phone rang, he let it ring 3 or 4 times so people would think that he was very busy answering other phones. And of course, it was the only call he was going to get all day. So his first venture was okay, but it wasn't really going to go anyplace. And there's a lesson in this for all of us. At age 40, he decided, with 17 vehicles, 17 cars, he was going to go into competition in the rent-a-car business. So now he's taking on Hertz and Avis and National and people like that who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cars. And he's got 17 cars, and his cars aren't any different than theirs. I mean, he's buying them from General Motors or Ford or Chrysler. And he can't get the airport locations. Those companies have them all sold up. But he was determined that he would basically offer the customer, can't offer him a different car, but he can offer them friendlier service than they've ever seen. And so he started a company. He named it after the battleship that he'd flown from in the Pacific, which was the USS Enterprise. And he died about a year and a half ago. But when he died, his rent-a-car company, starting with those 17 cars, was worth more than Hertz and Avis and all the rest of the rental cars put together.
Warren Buffett was born on August 30th, 1930 in the United States, in Omaha, Nebraska. In 1942, when his father was elected senator, he was re-elected 3 more times to the U.S. Congress. Warren moved to Washington with his parents and 2 sisters. Buffett acquired his interest in the stock market from his father, who worked as a broker in the stock market before his career as a politician. Warren made his first attempts to invest starting at a very young age. Already at the age of 11, he bought his first shares. These were preferred shares of the city's service company. At school, Buffett earned money, including by delivering the Washington Post newspaper in the morning. By the time he graduated from college, he had accumulated $9,800, that's over $100. Zero when adjusted for inflation today. Buffett was a true entrepreneur in his early youth, setting up jukeboxes in bars, selling golf balls, etc. After failing to get into Harvard, Buffett decided to attend Columbia University Business School, as his idol Benjamin Graham taught there. Graham's lectures were legendary at the time. He was not only an excellent lecturer and writer, his famous Securities Analysis and The Intelligent Investor have been reprinted for many decades, and are recognized as one of the best books for investors, but also a very successful practitioner. It is said that during his lectures, Graham gave such valuable and relevant advice that one could immediately go to the stock exchange, follow his recommendations, and make serious money. After studying, Buffett worked as a securities salesman for 3 years and then got a job as an investment analyst for Graham and his investment partnership Graham Newman Corp. Interestingly, Buffett offered his services to Graham for free, realizing that the experience he would gain here was invaluable. In 1956, Benjamin Graham retires and closes his company. Buffett moves from New York back to his native Omaha and establishes his own investment partnership. By then, by modern standards, Warren Buffett was already a millionaire. In 1952, Buffett married Susan Thompson. The following year, their first child was born. In total, Susan and Warren had 3 children: Susan Alice Buffett, Howard Graham Buffett, and Peter Buffett. Warren Buffett's personal life was not easy. Marriage with Susan Thompson was not very smooth due to the fact that Warren was entirely absorbed in his work. Gradually, they began to distance themselves from each other. In 1977, they began to live separately, although they did not officially divorce until Susan Buffett's death from cancer in 2004. In 2006, Warren Buffett married Astrid Mengs, with whom he had lived since his separation from Susan since 1977. Buffett in 2006 was 76 years old, his bride now 60. Interestingly, it was Susan who introduced Buffett to Astrid Mengs before her final separation from him and her departure to California to try her luck in a singing career. From 1956 through 1969, Buffett managed outside investors' money and his own with an average annual return of 23.8% before deducting Buffett's commission. The average annual return was 29.5%. This staggering result was achieved by Buffett finding extremely undervalued companies, buying their stock, and trying to influence the actions of the board of directors to make the stock rise in value. What Buffett was doing then is very similar to the actions of the so-called activist investors of today: Carl Icahn, Bill Ackman, and others. Warren Buffett's first investors were his close family and friends. He also received commissions for successfully managing their money, and already in 1962 Buffett became a dollar millionaire till $8.5 million adjusted for inflation for 2019. The biggest factor that influenced Warren Buffett's investing principles was his study and work for the father of value investing, Benjamin Graham. It was Graham who coined the term. The essence of value investing is to buy something, a security or a whole business, for less than its real value. This can be done either in times of general panic when investors are sure of the end of the world, and everything on the stock market is falling, as, for example, in the 2008 crisis or in early 2020 amid the coronavirus epidemic, or when investors misjudge the prospects of a business.